The cheapest Tesla in Australia right now costs around $55,000 drive away. The Model Y pushes into the mid-60s. Those cheaper overseas models? Not coming. Meanwhile, in China, Toyota just launched a family-sized electric SUV starting from the equivalent of $15,000. 7 trims, proper specs. If it landed here at $28,000 drive away, could it genuinely crush Tesla? That depends entirely on whether the price survives the trip. For anyone in Australia looking to buy an electric car with a Tesla badge, the entry point is clear. The base Model 3, sitting at about 55 grand drive away. That's not a rumour or a theoretical number. It's straight from Tesla's own Australian site and every major car review outlet. Step up to the Model Y and you're in the low to mid-60s. Again, drive away. No tricks, no hidden overseas discounts. Now, some will point out that in the US or Europe, you can get a so-called standard model for much less. But Tesla's local team has made it plain. Those cheaper standard variants aren't coming to Australia. They're sticking with the pricier, premium trims here. The company told the Financial Review their strategy is about delivering performance-focused models to meet what they see as local expectations. So, for families, commuters, or tradies hoping for a budget Tesla, the answer is simple. There isn't one. That's the price floor, and it's not moving. Toyota's BZ3X is not a rumour. It's a real physical SUV rolling out of GAC, Toyota's factories in China, a joint venture that's as official as it gets over there. This isn't some pint-sized city EV either. The BZ3X is about the size of a RAV4 or a Volkswagen ID4, so it's got proper family car dimensions. The Chinese launch happened in early 2025, with pre-orders reportedly opening late the year before. Now, here's where the headlines come from. The sticker price in China started at 110,000 yuan. Call it about 15 grand in US dollars at the time. For a short window, the launch offer even dipped a notch below that. But, and this is key, that figure is only for the Chinese market, not an Australian drive-away or even a landed estimate. The range isn't just a single stripped-out variant either. Buyers in China get a choice of 7 trims, from basic to fully loaded, so it's clear Toyota isn't treating this as a bare-bones loss leader. The badge says Toyota, which means a lot to Aussies, but that badge alone doesn't mean the car's ready or even coming for local roads. Chinese buyers didn't just line up for the BZ3X. They crashed the ordering server. Within hours of launch, Toyota's joint venture SUV was off to a flying start. Over 80,000 units shifted in its first year, with 1 month topping 10,000 deliveries. That's not a niche run. It's a proper volume play in the world's most cutthroat EV market. For 7 months straight, the BZ3X held the title of China's best-selling joint venture electric vehicle. That's not just beating the likes of Volkswagen and Nissan, it's outselling every other foreign brand's electric effort in the country. But what does that actually prove? China's market is a different beast. Government incentives, a supply chain stacked with local parts, around 90% of the BZ3X is made in China, and a pricing structure that rewards homegrown assembly all feed into those numbers. The low cost comes from building and selling at scale, with batteries, motors, and even the infotainment hardware sourced close to the factory. Analysts in the Australian motoring press have pointed out that this kind of demand shows the car isn't just a marketing stunt, it's a genuine hit with Chinese families. Still, the question hangs in the air. Is this a sign of global appetite for a budget Toyota EV, or just a China-only phenomenon? That's what we're about to test once we start peeling back the export, compliance, and landed cost layers. Here's what the BZ3X actually puts on the table for everyday drivers. The Chinese spec sheet offers 2 main battery choices, about 50 kilowatt-hours for the standard version and a beefier 68 kilowatt-hours for the long-range model. Now, the headline numbers from China's CLTC lab cycle look almost too good to be true. 430 kilometers for the base battery and up to 610 kilometers for the big pack. But those are best case, air-conditioned lab, empty car, slow traffic figures. They're not what you'll get on a summer road trip from Melbourne to Sydney with the kids, the dog, and the aircon blasting. Start factoring in real Australian conditions, highway speeds, hot days, a full house, and the usual family gear. And those numbers shrink. Most independent testers reckon you'd see about 300 to 340 kilometres from the smaller battery, and maybe 420 to 460 from the bigger one before you're nervously eyeing the next charger. That's still proper family car range, not golf cart stuff. For the average suburban commute, either version covers the week with charge to spare. Weekend getaways? The long-range model puts country towns within reach, but you'll want to plan your charging stops, especially in winter or if you're heading into the hills. Inside, the BZ3X doesn't feel like a budget bin special. There's a big central touchscreen, a slick-looking dash, and tech touches that wouldn't look out of place in a Tesla, though no one's claiming the software is on par. Some trims even offer LiDAR for driver assistance, but the details on how it works outside China are still up in the air. As for battery chemistry, charging speed, warranty, and how the car will cope with Australian plugs and networks, no official word yet. The specs look sharp, but the real-world answers are still missing. For now, it's a solid paper case with a few big question marks hanging over the Aussie version. Here's one twist nobody saw coming. In China, you can buy a Toyota BZ3X with a roof-mounted LiDAR sensor. That's not a typo. On the higher trims, this family SUV gets a spinning laser on top, working alongside a pack of cameras, radar, and ultrasonic sensors. LiDAR isn't just a buzzword, it actually fires out laser pulses and measures how long they take to bounce back, building a 3D map of the world around the car. It's the kind of tech you'd expect on a luxury limo or a robotaxi, not a mid-range Toyota. Meanwhile, Tesla's approach is the opposite. Every Model 3 and Model Y sold in Australia relies only on cameras and software. No LiDAR, no radar, just a bank of high-resolution eyes and a lot of neural networking. Tesla's official line is that cameras are enough, and that extra sensors just add cost and complexity. So, in a strange twist, the cheaper Toyota carries a hardware feature the pricier Tesla won't touch. But here's the catch. More hardware doesn't mean safer or smarter. LiDAR can spot a pram or a stray dog in low light, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. Whether it actually makes the BZ3X safer on Australian roads depends on independent testing, how well the software makes sense of all that data, and, crucially, whether the driver stays alert. No badge or sensor guarantees safety. In the end, it's not about what's bolted to the roof, but how the whole system behaves in the real world. Plenty of Australians have a Toyota parked out front. For decades, names like Corolla and Hilux have stood for cars that just get the job done. No fuss, no drama, just reliable transport. That reputation isn't built on wild claims or internet hype. It comes from years of keeping families, commuters and tradies on the road. So, when talk turns to a Toyota-badged electric SUV, one that, on paper, could undercut the cheapest Tesla by tens of thousands, it's hard not to imagine the appeal. The idea isn't about out-teching or out-flashing Tesla. It's about a simple, honest proposition. What if you could get a roomy, battery-powered Toyota for the price of a well-spec'd Corolla? That's the dream scenario. The badge alone carries a certain weight in Australia. People trust that if it says Toyota, it'll start every morning, handle the school run, and get you home from the footy. There's a dealer in nearly every town, and most mechanics know the cars inside out. For a lot of buyers, especially those who just want a sensible, affordable family car, that kind of confidence matters more than a fancy touchscreen or how quick it gets to 100 k's an hour. But here's the catch. Just because a Toyota sells like hotcakes in China doesn't mean it's been proven on Australian roads. Years of Corolla ownership make the badge feel familiar, but they don't guarantee this new electric SUV will live up to local expectations for reliability, servicing, or warranty. The price looks unbeatable on paper, but that's before you add in the cost of getting it here, meeting Aussie safety rules, and covering dealer margins. The real test isn't whether the BZ3X is cheap in theory, It's what it actually costs and delivers once it hits Australian showrooms. In Australia, the BZ3X's price is anything but settled. No official launch has been confirmed. Toyota's local team has only ever called it a possibility, not a promise. That means every figure flying around, from $28,000 headlines to back-of-the-envelope landed estimates, is just that, a scenario, not a sticker you'll find at a dealership. Let's break down what it would actually take to get a Chinese-built BZ3X onto Australian roads. First, the car itself isn't made for right-hand drive by default. Converting more than just the steering wheel, think pedals, wiring, airbags, crash sensors, and the whole dash means extra engineering. And that's before you even hit the paperwork. To legally sell a new car here, Toyota would need to put the BZ3X through the full gauntlet of Australian design rules. That's crash testing, battery safety checks, and making sure the driver assist tech can read our speed signs and lane markings. ANCAP would want a local crash validation, which isn't just a rubber stamp from China. Even if the BZ3X is a 5-star car over there, it needs to prove itself on our turf. Then there's warranty, servicing, and spare parts. Toyota's reputation in Australia is built on a dealer network that stretches from the city to the bush. For the BZ3X to live up to that, Toyota would need to guarantee battery support, parts supply, and a proper warranty, none of which is confirmed for this model. And that's just the basics. Now, about the price. The Chinese figure, 110,000 yuan, or about 15 grand US dollars, doesn't survive the trip. Shipping, import duty, GST, right-hand drive conversion, compliance costs, dealer margins, and on-road charges all pile on. The most optimistic landed estimate sits in the mid to high $20,000 range, but even that isn't a drive-away price. More realistic scenarios, based on what happened with other Chinese EVs, suggest a drive-away figure in the high 30,000s to low 40,000s. That's not half the price of a base Tesla, but it's still a major drop from where Toyota's own BZ4X sits today. For now, Toyota's official word is that nothing is locked in. No local specs, no warranty details, and no price. Until that changes, the $28,000 dream is just that. A dream, not a deal. The most surprising challenger to Tesla's grip on the Australian EV market isn't some wild-eyed disruptor or a Silicon Valley upstart. It's a Toyota. Not just any Toyota, but one that looks and feels like the cars many Australians grew up with. The kind that ferried generations to school, work, and footy practice. That badge means something here. It signals a car that simply works, not one that promises the moon. For some, it's the car their parents trusted. For others, it's the car parked out front right now. That's a different kind of appeal from Tesla's pitch. Less about the dash cam tricks or over-the-air updates, more about the number on the windscreen and the knowledge that you'll find a dealer in nearly every town. Yet, this is where things get interesting. While Tesla has spent years building a reputation as the future, sleek, digital, sometimes polarizing, Toyota's possible play is all about trust and price. The BZ3X, if it ever lands here, would be a familiar face in a new game, promising affordability over flash. But there's a catch. No one, not even Toyota Australia, can say when or if this electric SUV will actually hit local roads. The badge is known, the hype is real, but the Australian future for this car is still just a question mark. For now, all that's certain is that the next round of the EV contest could be fought not over software, but over the simple promise of a reliable, affordable car with a name everyone knows. Right now, the promise of a $28,000 electric Toyota sits on the edge of possibility, just out of reach, but close enough to rattle the market. If the BZ3X ever lands at that price, it could upend what Aussies expect from an EV. Would you trade in for one at $28,000 drive away? Drop your answer below and stick around as the real numbers roll in.